Today, we're taking a look at all the Unived flavors. A short while ago, Unived reached out to me and asked me if I would take a look at some of their products, both their gels and some of their recovery mix. And this is a brand that I had been looking at already, so I was very happy to be able to work with them on this project. So in terms of disclosures, I do want to say that this is all product that was sent to me by Unived for the purpose of review. However, they're not paying me to use these gels and recovery mixes or to make this video, and they're not going to get any chance to preview any of my footage or thoughts before it goes up on YouTube. So with that out of the way, let me go over some of the stuff that they sent. So some of the stuff that they sent were their Unived gels, which are kind of like more of a smaller size. All their packets are a little bit wider than I'm used to, but these are also about shorter than some of the other gels that they have, which are their Elite gels, which are about twice as big, a little bit bigger than, say, like a Martin gel in terms of height, and a little bit wider as well. But just so you get some of the size comparison, here's the one versus the other. This is the recovery mix that they sent, and they sent me two different flavors of this. This is a packet of powder that you put into your water bottle for immediately after your run, so you can get some nutrients back into your system, get some protein into your system, and have that as your recovery drink. Now, I don't typically have a recovery drink, but I was happy to try some of these out because as I was hitting some of the peak miles of my marathon training block, I was taking in some protein shakes. Now, I've been getting one every week with the Nike team that I've been training with over at Edge Athlete Lounge. They give us a smoothie after every workout, so I've been enjoying those. And when my wife and I became vegetarians, my wife bought vegan protein powder that's also allergen free. So there's no peanuts, no tree nuts in it, which is important for stuff that we're bringing into our household because my daughter has a peanut allergy. So I've been taking some of that occasionally after some of my longer runs, but recovery mixes aren't something that I do like routinely. I don't necessarily do it after every single run, just some of the hardest runs. So I guess I'll start with the recovery mix. I tried both of these after long runs. This one I thought I would enjoy the most. It's the cocoa turmeric latte. I didn't particularly enjoy the flavor of this one. I had this one though, which is a creamy vanilla flavor. And I had that one for after the Chicago Half Marathon over the weekend. And I really did enjoy the flavor. It went down very smooth. You're supposed to mix this with about the size of a water bottle amount of water. And the consistency was really good. I had it in kind of a squirt bottle and I was able to take it down just fine. Really great flavor, really enjoyed this, and I really did like having this. Now the kind of disclaimer that I'll put on my kind of review of the drink mixes for recovery is, I don't really know how to gauge what's a good recovery mix or not. I think that requires much longer lengths of testing of a person over like an entire marathon training block. So it's kind of hard to tease that out. But in terms of the nutrients and the other carbohydrates and proteins that you're getting back into your system from this particular drink mix, I think the numbers look pretty good. You're getting 220 calories, 44 grams of sugars, which I think is nice. It's also about a bagel and a half, maybe, in terms of carbs. You're getting 10 grams of protein, though, which I think is good. After a tough workout, after a tough race, I always, that's kind of like the main number that I'm looking for in terms of things to have after a workout. And it's putting a bunch of sodium back into your system, 221 milligrams. So I think that's also very good as well to have. So I did enjoy the drink mix. If you like drink mixes, I think this one is worth a shot. All their products are vegan. So if you're looking for vegan options and you want a recovery mix, I think this is a pretty good way to go. Now, for the race itself at the half marathon, I brought one of these, the salted caramel gels, because I wanted something a little bit smaller to carry with me. It's kind of a dry run for the marathon. I thought I'd go with the smaller packet. And I do like some of the numbers that it has, 26 grams of sugars, which is, I'm looking for anything from a gel, anything in the 18 to mid 20s in terms of sugars. But I'm also looking for salt. That was a big concern for me going into this race. I'm a heavy sweater. And I think more accurately, I think I lose a lot of salt as I'm sweating and as I'm exercising. And that has been an issue for me. So I'm trying to boost that up. This one has 131 milligrams of salt, which is more than the other flavors that they have. Of just the regular size gels, these have less salt. These have, I think, about 80 milligrams of salt in them, so a little bit less. This salted caramel has a little bit more, so that's the one that I picked. And this is also happens to be my favorite flavor. Now I've taken all the gels, both the regular gels, the recovery mix, and the elite size gels, and I did a taste test of all of them just to kind of see how they were, because I think you have a lot of options here. And for me, the flavors that I thought I would like the most were not the ones that I liked the most. And so that was a bit of a surprise. Usually I like things that are like in the chocolate family or the coffee family, and the ones that have the most caffeine. That wasn't the case here. In fact, my favorite ones were not the ones that had caffeine in it, which was a big surprise to me. And my favorite ones were the ones that were salty. So this one, the Elite Gel, I really like this vanilla sea salt. And like I was saying before, I like this salted caramel in the regular size gel the most. So these were my two favorite flavors. I'll put my detailed tasting notes down in the comments, and I'll rank them in terms of the ones that I liked and the ones that I didn't like. The other thing that I'll note about these is that it's a liquid packet. And so it's not like a goo, it's not like a Cliff Shots where you're squeezing out like a paste. It's probably the closest thing that I could say is that it's like a science in sport, in that it's like a fluid that you're taking in rather than a gel that you're squeezing out. And so that's something to keep in mind, just to be aware of in terms of when you're taking it in. I think when you're running and you're squeezing something into your mouth to take down some nutrition during an event or even just during a long run, when you get a surprise, whether it's tasty or not, if you're surprised at the texture, that's going to be really off-putting. So just be aware that it is liquid. And the other thing to be aware of is that it's a little bit like syrupy. I would say that the consistency for all of these gels is kind of like a cough syrup. Some of them had a little bit or a lot of it of like a medicine-like taste. And those were the ones that I didn't like so much. So it's a little bit runny, a little bit thin. So that's just something you need to be aware of. As I was running during the race and trying to take this gel, which I took early on in my race, I found that the packet was hard to open. Now, I have a hard time opening Martins all the time. I always try to rip it clean off, but it always gets kind of caught at the end, and then I have like this flap that I have to like fight with. I kind of had that with this one too, where I had a hard time. And because I knew it was liquid, I didn't want to like rip it off, and I was worried that it would like spew everywhere all over everyone. So I had a little bit of a hard time getting this one ripped off. Just maybe that's just me, something I got to get used to with some of these. And then I was able to take it down. I got a little bit kind of on the packet, so the delivery was a little bit difficult. I think if I get a clean rip, which I'm going to really work on that for the marathon, I think that'll be fine. And so ultimately taking it down was fine. Eating it was fine. If you're someone that is worried that you have to take your gel with water from the course during a race, this is the kind of thing that I would test out first, obviously, but I would consider, because I don't think you need to have water with it. It's not going to take over or supplant or supersede your need to take on fluids during a race, but you don't have to take it with water. Now, in terms of the other stuff that's in here, let's talk about like the Elite Gel. The Elite Gel has a little bit of a different formulation. This has a 2-to-1 ratio of simplex carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates, which is supposed to aid in just helping your body absorb more of the sugars over time. There's also a lot more salt in these. So the regular kind of levels of salt in the Elite Gels are 144 milligrams. This one, vanilla sea salt, is 277 milligrams. So if I take this one with me to a race, that's definitely one I'm going to reach for. It's also the only flavor of the Elite Gels that I really like. The other ones had a lot of like medicine-y or like a metallic taste to it, which I didn't really like, and I think I would have a hard time drinking quite like this much of it. This vanilla sea salt though is pretty tasty, so I really liked it. The other thing that the Elite Gels have is betaine, which has 800 milligrams of it. The regular gels also have 800 milligrams of betaine, which I don't have experience with that before. So taking it at the Chicago Half Marathon was my first time with it. Unived lists it as an osmoprotectant. It's supposed to protect your cells from heat stress. So that sounds like something that I would like. The Elite gels also have something that the regular gels don't have, two other things. One is 400 milligrams of beta-alanine, and the other is, I think, 200 milligrams of sodium bicarb or baking soda. So the idea with the bicarb is to counteract changes in blood pH or your muscle pH. So everyone kind of familiar with the idea of you're working hard, your muscles are working hard, they're building up lactic acid. Sodium bicarb has high pH. Acid on one side, pH on the other, keeps your blood at the regular pH, at least that's the idea. I've seen some research about sodium bicarb helping for short bursts of activity. I admit that I don't have a lot of knowledge in terms of how sodium bicarb affects endurance athletes. So I'm not sure that I can really evaluate yet. I haven't done enough thorough testing yet to evaluate whether the betaine, the beta-alanine, or the sodium bicarb are going to be all that helpful. So I don't really know yet. I still have to do more testing on it, whether having betaine, beta-alanine, and sodium bicarb are really all that necessary or helpful for marathoners, which is what I do. Now, the regular gels, they don't have the beta-alanine or the bicarb, but they do have the betaine in it. The weather conditions we had for the Chicago Half Marathon were relatively mild temperature-wise. It was rather humid, so it's a weird, cool, humid kind of weather conditions. I had a great day for the Chicago Marathon. I can't attribute it to the shoes or the gels or any one particular thing, but I was able to take this gel down quite well. I was hungry when I took it, and I felt a lot better after I took it. So I felt like my body had no problem absorbing the sugars, and also I felt like I kept very topped up through drinking the Gatorade endurance drink that was provided on the course. And with this, that had the bump of sodium in it. So I felt like my sodium levels were good. I didn't get any of that muscle like seizing up that I get when I'm low on sodium on a long or a particularly strenuous run. So in terms of helping me manage my salt, I felt like this did a great job. The other gel that I took at the Chicago Half Marathon was a Martin CAF 100 that has only 55 or 50 milligrams of salt. So in terms of like the salt content, I was a little low, but I was also still taking about 100 milligrams of salt per every time I stopped at a water station. And I tried to stop a little less than every 5K based on where the water stations were for that race. So I was taking in about 400 to 500 milligrams of salt per hour for that race. And so I think that is a good number for me. That's something that I'll be kind of remembering as I go forward and thinking about my plan for the Chicago Marathon. Stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up next week in terms of figuring out exactly what I'm going to be bringing with me for the race. A lot of that I think is going to depend on temperature. So right now we're just at the cusp of that like 10-day weather forecast. So far it looks like it might rain and this time of year in Chicago, that's always a high probability. And it looks like it's going to be relatively cool unless things take like a sudden quick spike, which they certainly could. For example, here in Chicago, Monday and Tuesday, we had mid to high 80s. Wednesday, it was in the 60s, low 60s. So like a 20 degree in terms of the high temperature swing in the course of like 24 hours. So who knows what could happen in Chicago. I'm still thinking that it's going to be hot. That's been my gut based on no scientific evidence whatsoever that it's going to be a hot race. In that case, I'm going to be looking for the higher levels of salt. I'll probably have a cocktail of different kinds of gels to bring with me throughout the race based on kind of the things that I think that I'm going to need based on as the race gets longer, it's going to get warmer, or certain spots of the race are a little bit more dead than others. So I might want to have caffeine to have a little bump right at those points. So that'll be it. But I think that definitely at least one of these two will be in the mix. Maybe this one. I'm a little bit concerned about the weight and kind of the size of these, but for the tunnel marathon that I ran in June, I carried 4 gels with me, and you had to carry, or it was strongly recommended that you carry your phone with you. And I was able to run that in my half tights that I've been racing in and doing a lot of my long runs in. So I don't think that it'll be a problem to carry these around with me if I need to get to the point where I want a gel that has 277 milligrams of salt, which sounds great to have. So those are my thoughts though on the Unived kind of product line. And they have a whole bunch of other products as well that are geared towards some of the ultra runners that may have a little bit more space like in their packs to carry stuff with them. But I think this is a pretty good sample of all of the products that marathoners might want to try and be interested in. If you have any questions about that, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys more down there. Before I go, I do want to remind you guys about the charity runner for the week. This week, it's Jamil who's going to be running the Chicago Marathon and raising money for Boys and Girls Club. I was very happy to donate $70 to his fundraising efforts, and I'll post a link in the description in case you'd like to learn more. And if you want to give, you can give as little as $1 to any of these people that I've spotlighted every week. So I highly encourage you to at least consider maybe giving $1 just once in a while, just so that way people know that the people that are watching these videos are out there and supporting other runners in the community. That's all I have for today. Everybody, thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?